our first piece of time together is around the notion of self. And part of it is that the idea that the very foundation of community begins with self. And to the extent that we don't know who we are or ourselves are not invited into the conversation, it makes it that much harder to build deep and reciprocal relationships if we are either trying to be somebody else or still, of course, we're always in process of who are we. So the way that we are going to do this is we have a panel of 4 people, and they are each going to share about 3 minutes, a sense of who am I, and in listening, you'll also get a feeling and an understanding that that I has such different reverberations depending on our culture, and also really going beyond the I of like, I am number one, but we're going way beyond that I. The difference really between individuality, you might say, and individualism as being, I think, an ism, as there are many other isms. So there's an exploration of that, and after the 4 of them, then we're going to have an opportunity, and I'll come back and guide a little bit about how that's going to happen at the tables.
My name is Strong Oak, and I am from the stars. I'm an indigenous woman of Maliseet and Mi'kmaq descent. Both of these are star nations. I've participated in a lot of ceremonies that directly relate to the stars, so it's not like this New Age thing. Like working off the Big Dipper, the last star at the end of the handle is the star that I've been, worked with in ceremonies. And as an indigenous woman, and as a woman in general, I brought the seeds from the heavens that gave birth to the Earth Mother as we know it. And therefore, I am deeply connected to the land, having been one of the creators of it. And the eggs that I carried in my ovaries when I came into the world are my direct link to every ancestor that has ever been here. This is through the matrilineal DNA that I carry. As a woman, I also complete the rhythm of the whole universe, which revolves in the heavens, like 280, it takes 280 days for the whole universe to go around. And a pregnant woman takes 280 days to bring forward a child into the world. And also in the menstrual cycle that I, for many years, participated in, that was a 28-day lunar cycle. So it's just a total mirror of the universe. And I share this relationship with the universe and with every woman in this room. Despite this deep connection with the land and the heavens, I've struggled with visibility all my life. I did not find reference to myself as a Native American in any history book or any school or in my neighborhood. My family moved here from Canada, and they left the reservation system behind. So I also bear that legacy of the residential boarding school system, which incarcerated 75% of all indigenous children by 1930. 95 to 100% of those children, male and female, were in fact sexually abused. My ancestors were very nearly exterminated, and the policies of the US government continue to foster genocide today. Compounding the struggle to be visible as a Native person, I also am Two-Spirit, which in the dominant culture is a lesbian. All the time that I grew up, because I'm an elder in my middle 60s now, there was no words. They didn't even have a coinage for LGBT back then. And so I was like inventing pronouns and telling people different stories about what my very basic and most special relationships were. So there was like just no acceptance, both as a Native person and as a lesbian. So I lived a double life made up of those pronouns to hide all those relationships. And it was very hurtful because Native beliefs are not a life in isolation. I'm transformed by every single encounter I have. My identity is determined by how I'm reflected in your eyes, and then I reflect back to you who you are. And there is no subject and object in my world and in my belief system. So therefore, I had to kind of get out from the depths of my being a sense of worth. And that became, using my own traditions for that, we have a belief, and this is about our circles, the restorative circles, is that the purpose of circles is to have no hierarchy, no one is better than anyone, and to raise the minority voice to a place of equality. So that has framed all my work, just trying to be an equal partner in the world and treating other people as equal partners in the world, and bridge all these differences, and even to embrace those who come from a dominant cultural world that have really, really hurt people of my race and culture. So I'm really happy to be here, and to me, equality is the heart of the circle, and doing this work restores to wholeness, brings me home, and it is bringing us all home.
So we are all practicing and modeling 3-minute stories, which you're going to get a chance to do. So here goes. So my roots are in Poland and Ireland. My grandparents told a lot of stories about being poor in those countries. Our family name was changed from Szymanski to Simmons. Small price to pay, I was told. To move to the US was a great privilege and opportunity. We were sure we would be taken care of. I grew up outside Chicago, New York, and Boston in predominantly white suburbs, rich in resources, privacy, competition, pride, and independence. I was safe and sound, surrounded by people who looked like me, protected, privileged, with a home, money, relative ease, acceptance. As a middle-class white girl, I felt both invisible and way too apparent. And I'm taking from Peggy McIntosh now. My color, I assumed, was normal, neutral, like flesh-colored Band-Aids or crayons. I felt trapped in a box. Something was not right. I wanted to join the wider world, understand it, equalize us. I moved around a lot as a kid, and I mostly just wanted to blend in, to be comfortable in my skin. And I found my kin in other kids, immigrant kids, kids on the fringe, outcasts of all kinds. I was let in. My dad always wanted us to see the range of wealth and poverty, so we would take drives. First we'd go to see the big mansions, and all I could think of was how many people could live in those mansions, how many homeless people. Really early on, strong memory. I wondered who the fences kept out and in, and I felt sad at the big lonely lawns. Where is everybody? Then we drove to the city to see streets alive with people, rich in recognition, connection, public property, and what I saw as interdependence. People piled sky high. I wondered why. I knew poverty, discrimination existed, but it kind of drifted beyond my grasp. Crimes of wealth, crimes of poverty, why the divide? I felt guilty, embarrassed, and I actually wanted to hide. I wondered where was the middle ground. So, continuing, I learned about my invisible backpack. This is Peggy McIntosh, look her up. I wasn't trained to be an oppressor or a change agent in a rigged racial, social, economic system. I realized bootstraps didn't get me where I was, but invisible codes, secret doors, allowances. I had an idea of spreading the wealth, sharing the stuff. There's enough for all of us. So I dared myself out of my guilt, and stepped across a lot of invisible lines into diverse neighborhoods, Salvation Army centers, family shelters, prisons. Just wanted to get to see the other side. I wanted to understand people in context. And I went with curiosity, compassion, and a real feeling of trust. I felt safe where I was going. I grew an intention to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Now I'm 56. I'm neither proud nor ashamed of my white privilege. I try to use it for the common good, to speak out as much as I can, to act out when I need to do what I can to bridge the divide between rich and poor, freedom and entrapment. I honor our differences as well as our common ground. We're more than black and white, more than victim and offender, more than good and evil, more than burdened and blessed. We all have the potential for all. We're made of our history, our context, our conditions, our will, our ethics, our faith, our support systems, pain, courage, and hope. I started off wanting to know the other, realized that there is no other. We are all each other, and we're all in this together. And I'm out of time. We're all mixed identities. I'm a Buddhist, a Unitarian, a hippie, an activist, a pacifist, a feminist, a Democrat, as many of us are, many, many, many things. And as Nelson Mandela says in his wonderful book, No Future Without Forgiveness, I am human because I belong. What happens to any of us happens to all of us. And every single human being is like all others, like some others, and like no other.
So I'm a young man who walks in faith, and lessons I learned and am still learning on my life's journey. I guess I am what you call self-taught. I even homeschooled for a while, so. Adopted at the age of 4, I came to learn that family is what you make it. And I've also realized that they tell you, like, we're taught to think outside the box, and we're also taught to live in it. So, and we tell stories to relate to one another, right? So I'm going to tell you mine, and as little words as I can. My people have been told a lie, and it's sunk so deep, I look around and weep because as a nation we are still asleep. Answering a question with a question as if no one wants to learn a lesson. Lord, send us a blessing. I see us entering another age called the Great Depression. We hear so many lies that we understand the truth is one. I never appreciated life until death called my name. Playing around because I was taught to compare life to a game. Ever since that, I've never been the same. Economic growth instead of personal gain was sustained on my membrane. Still in search for a heart that was mute in spite of a silent protest for a little love. Where can I place the blame? Repressed memories of a life that I ran away from. The world teaches that nothing is free, so it's hard to accept others' help for me. My people don't know the true meaning of family, and it's killing me because we stepped into the world with a twisted sense of reality. The world against me, me against the world. In some ways, that's how I see things, but I know if I search hard enough, I can call my own bluff. I was taught that this is a white man's world, and heard the pain of my love having her life's purpose shattered when a white man raped her worthless. Repressed memories because I was told to hate. Hate the system of things by embracing my history and ignoring my future mystery. Never thought I'd embrace a Caucasian brother. I can't rewrite history, but I can overcome misery. Talk so much because no one ever listened to me. But I'm outspoken now, so look at me. And does it look like I care if you agree? Look around at my new family. Yeah, YBB. We are still that strange fruit. But now we have the means for rebuke. This world is raping us all, but only if you choose to be a prostitute. The noose is loose, so please no more blood on the trees and on the root. And armed with a little love and truth, take aim and shoot.
First of all, thank you, Kathy, for inviting me to be part of this panel. I am truly humbled to be among my peers. So really, thank you. I really am humbled. Does everyone hear me if I put the microphone here? Yeah. Is that, okay, thank you.
Can anyone not hear?
Can anyone not hear is the better question. All right, great. Thank you, Kathy. So Kathy asked the question, what were we born as and what have we become? And I would just say, I guess I was born, no, I don't guess. I was born gay. I grew up with the identity of a religious, faithful Latin American, and I became undocumented when I moved to the United States at the age of 11. My family grew up in the Fujimori regime, And just to give you a bit of a picture of what that looked like, I went to school when I was 7, second grade, carrying a pen at hand so that I could stop any abductor who could come and get me. My father was also abducted at gunpoint at some point. So we fled the United States to what we hope would be safety in this country. And for me, that escape was particularly important because, well, as I mentioned, I am gay. So all my life, I had received anti-gay messages. And I wrote the following on a journal years later, reflecting. Look at Jesus, my teacher said to our class. Every time you sin, every time you lie, cheat on your homework, every time you are rude to your parents, bother your siblings, every time you do something sinful, something bad, the devil revels in pleasure because your sin means another nail, another lash, another thorn piercing into Christ. The words left a lasting impression on me, and every time I sinned, I took a sharpened pencil and pressed the tip as hard as I could into my hand until it hurt too much to push further. I was a coward, and I wondered how much the nail I launched into Jesus, baby Jesus, hurt. Ashamed, I cried. And so over the years, part of my journey was in reconciling or reconstituting my faith with my being, my homosexuality. And it took many years for me to understand Jesus not as a model of exclusion, but really as a model of love and embodiment of full inclusion. And in the United States, all of my identities mix, my Latin American identity, my homosexual identity, my undocumented identity, and many, many others that I'm not mentioning, obviously. And they became compounded in this country. Betsy mentioned that you said you felt trapped in a box, and I felt trapped at home, a home that I had made in this new country. Now, why do I tell this? How does this relate to restorative justice? Well, my identities allowed me to find communities. Restorative justice is all about communities, right? And our identities inform, not necessarily dictate, our communities. John Didion said once, "We tell ourselves stories in order to live." I'd like to reformulate that a bit. We tell others stories in order to relate. So my community I found through acceptance and love of who I am first, and being proud of my many, many selves. And then I found that community by being able to relate. Thank you.
So we get to just really sit for maybe 15 seconds just to absorb and honor those stories. Thank you. Just absorbing, imagine what it would feel like each day to be listened to have an opportunity to share the absolute beauty and brilliance that lives inside of each of us in the different forms that it manifests, in suffering, in joy, so many ways. Always in formation. So thank you for those 4 gems. And now we're going to have an opportunity for you all to share gems. Just practically speaking, are there any tables with just 1 or 2 people, or are we?
Looks pretty full.
Pearl's got a full table and everything. Great. So what's going to happen is not only are you going to have an opportunity to share a piece of your own stories with one another and an opportunity for reflection, but this is actually also an experience of being in circle. And we are doing this trusting your wisdom. There are undoubtedly people at every table who have been familiar with keeping circles or sitting in circles, and for some, you may be at a table where this is your first opportunity, and you will be fabulous. So let me just give you a couple of pieces of wisdom to help support that process. In the middle of your table is a stone. Someone want to just lift it up? Find it? Lovely. So now those of you who have the stone, you can begin. Or you can find someone else to take it from you. But so the stone, and in the circle process, you know, there are communities of people who have sat in circle forever in every continent. Circles of women, circles in many continents, and in the both and. In the United States, when we sit here on native ground, I think it's also particularly important to recognize that the circle process that began in this land began with native peoples who have always sat in circle. And a lot of those native people who are still sitting in circle today are the people whose brilliance and generosity and the sense of how important circles are for healing have brought that and shared it with others from different backgrounds to carry it on in the spirit in which it's intended. So the elements of circle are really one another's brilliance, sharing voice, and that rock that you picked up, and they come from beautiful parts of the earth, that rock is a talking piece. And what that means is when you have the rock, you have the privilege of speaking, and when you don't have it, you have the privilege of listening. And listening is as much a piece of the circle and as vibrant as talking. So we have about 45 minutes, and we have 3 questions, which means essentially 3 rounds. So, and if you think about 15 minutes per round, you might think, oh, that's about 2 minutes a person, which means that someone might take 1 minute, someone might take longer. But the first question is really a little bit in the way that you heard, who were you born as and who are you becoming? Which is really an invitation in whatever way you feel comfortable to say, who are you? What are some of the communities that you belong to, some of the values that you embrace, some of the identities that are meaningful to you? Some people may just share their name and what it means to them. Others may have something that comes to mind, may share something. So that's the first question. And we will ring the bell after 15 minutes. If you're still going around the circle, keep going. It just means there'll be slightly less time for the other 2. And if you're finished with that going around, and it's worth taking 2 seconds in between people just to pause at the end to send it around, and this question of how you see the concept of self in community. And you could, in any way that you want to, what does self mean to you? People on the panel also connected self to restorative practices. Feel free to elaborate. And then the third go-round is really an opportunity to just anything that's been said that struck you, any learning, any reflection. It could be on what you've heard up here. It could be on what someone in your group has said. Or it just could be like, how am I feeling at the final circle at this table? Any questions? Lovely. And then we'll have a few minutes at the end just to hear a couple of reflections from people at the table. Is that stretching or is that a question? No, that's okay. That's good. First it looked like one
Stretch
hand, I thought it was a
anytime.
question, but then it was two, so. So, everyone's clear? So the person who was picking up the rock, if you're willing to just begin with the first question. Who were you born as? Who are you becoming? Thank you.